last session, everybody thinks it was better in the past. When you reach a certain age, as I have now reached, you can remember all sorts of periods when people thought the world was going to an end. I can remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, or that awful period in the early 70s, not only in this country, but when you had the Arab-Israeli war followed by the OPEC price rises. The Soviet Union seemed to be on the up, everybody else on the down, Watergate, etc. I mean, there's always good room for gloom. And we've been living in the presence of nuclear weapons, which is what makes people really gloomy and doomy, since 1945. So, and there have been times when we've been apparently closer to nuclear war than we are now. So there's always difficulty when you get these questions of finding the right balance between complacency and panic. I think there are reasons to be worried, because we've got a major war in Europe, which we haven't seen anything like that since 1945. We've got, I think, a built-in instability in the Middle East now that's going to be very hard to get rid of. And we've got this basic question of what's China up to, which is a difficult one to answer, I think, in some ways the most difficult of all these sets of questions. So there's plenty to worry about and watch. I don't think we're on an inevitable path to world war or anything like that, but it needs a lot of attention. And you know, when you think about a new government coming in, a few days after the election is announced, as the speaker starts swearing in, Starmer will be off to Washington for his first NATO summit, which is going to be very difficult with some big issues on the table. So, you know, it's something that we need to watch and be worried about. Just final point, the basic problem we have at the moment is we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to work out what's going on in the heads of dictators. You know, what is Putin? What Putin really his risk threshold? What's he really thinking? Is he a stealth man? Will he get what he wants through stealth, or is he going to make a really big push? What happens after the Ayatollah Khamenei? What's he thinking? So, I mean, I think this is one of the problems, that we've got opponents who aren't very transparent, and that makes it harder to work out exactly where we're going.
I mean, park that thought, because I'm going to come back and ask you what these people are thinking in a minute. We'll talk about each of these issues in a little bit more detail. But I mean, to what extent is our sense of insecurity in the West prompted by the fact that the West simply doesn't matter anymore? We're no longer the centre of world politics, and that's going to prompt a degree of unease, however benign the circumstances.
Well, I think we are the centre, I mean, not the centre of world politics. It's more multipolar than it was. In terms of GDP, there's no doubt that the West is stronger. The Russians talk about and others talk about the global majority now, but the global majority is not of one mind. I mean, I'm continually surprised by how difficult people find to think of India as an important player in the modern world, which doesn't think the same as Russia or China about a lot of its interests, doesn't think the same way as us either. So there are a lot of different power centres in the world, and that's an important feature, but the West is still by far the most cohesive bloc. Nobody has alliances like the United States does. Now that could fall apart, and that's a worry. And I think that, you know, a lot of the current unease is looking forward to November and what happens after the next presidential election. We may have a better sense after the imminent debate between Trump and Biden. Two spry young men upon whom the future of the world depends. So we may have a better sense after that. But, you know, Russia is a declining power with nuclear weapons. China is not rising as fast as everybody expected. So I think we should have more confidence, I think, in the West and its institutions and its democracy, with all the flaws we know that democracy has, and accepting that we're potentially going through a difficult time, both because of what happened what's going on in France at the moment, and potentially what will happen in the United States. But it's never a simple picture.